Hey, it's Jerry Norton here, and one of the most important skills you can acquire as a real estate investor and as a wholesaler is how to become a master closer, how to close deals like a pro. And this transitions into all kinds of areas of your life and in your business especially. So I want to talk to you about my unique formula or process that I like to follow to become a master closer. The first step I want to talk about is sort of a general idea, but it's what I call BRT, and it stands for Build a Relationship of Trust. So when you're negotiating a deal, whatever it is, especially real estate with houses, you have to establish a connection with that seller. If you're trying to put a deal together, you really want to connect with that person and relate to that person. They need to feel that you're someone that they want to do business with. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. Now, this doesn't have to be an extensive, lengthy process, doesn't have to take a long time, but you cannot get a great deal on something, usually, for the most part, unless there's some sort of a mutual respect, there's some sort of friendship there, or relatability, or likability. And so this is something that is more of a way of being. Now, there's some techniques and some things you want to do here, but it's more about really, can you talk to someone like they're a human being? Can you understand where they're coming from? Can you see their point of view? Can you relate to them and find things that are relatable about you and them? Are you good at mirroring, meaning you're matching their style of communication? Like, these are some things that go a long way that is more of an art than a science. Like, it's not a specific script you follow, but it's more of like, can I create where they feel like I'm an authority? They feel like I'm for real. They feel like I care. This is sort of a broad thing. This is happening the whole time you're negotiating. This isn't just like an intro or something. It's just all along the way. You want to continually build a relationship of trust. Okay, step 2 in the process is I always want to find out the seller's price first. There's an old Chinese proverb that says, "He who names the price first loses." So this is very important in negotiations that they name the price first so that I know what I'm up against. I need to know where they stand. If we take houses and I'm buying a house and I'm trying to negotiate a price to buy that house, I need to first understand and establish where the seller's asking price is. Where are they at? Because I can't really negotiate a deal if I don't first understand where they're coming from. Are they serious? Are they motivated? How motivated? And the reason why this is so important is because it allows us to first understand, here's where they're at. Now I know how I need to handle this. I'm always going to play off of the seller's price first before I even negotiate. I'm looking for nuance. I'm looking for signs of motivation. I'm looking for, is this a reasonable price and we're not that far off? Or are they stuck up in la la land way up in the clouds and we're not even close? Because that's going to tell me how I approach this. It's very important to read a seller, and one of the best ways to read a seller is by where they're starting at. Now, price is a deceiver. We don't actually take it at face value because, as you'll see in a minute, and as I show constantly on my real estate channel where I'm negotiating with sellers, the seller's list or ask price is sometimes way off from their actual bottom line of what they'll take for the property. I call this discriminating a seller based on price. We never discriminate based on price. Meaning, I don't care what number they give me, I'm still gonna follow my process of negotiating a deal. I'm gonna assume that that's not their real number and they're just starting there and they've got lots of room to come down until I find out otherwise. So step 3 is our anchor. And this is where we're gonna come in now very, very low. And the anchor has a couple of rules. This is going to be a ballpark. It's gonna be extremely low. And the goal is that it solicits a no. And that's our anchor. And then step 4 is gonna be we negotiate to our desired price. The goal here is that they come down exponentially, we come up incrementally. So let me give an example of this 4-step process. I came into town from Tennessee to check on one of my projects. I'm building an 11,000 square foot luxury house. And we have a project foreman that we're grooming. His name's David. He's an awesome guy. He's got tons of construction experience, but he's really lacking in negotiation skills. He's not very good at negotiating great deals. And we're hiring contractors, we're ordering materials. I mean, we're spending millions of dollars building this house. And so we are in the process of coaching him constantly on how to get good deals, how to negotiate good prices. And it just really got me thinking about how I follow these certain steps when I do houses and how this really transfers over to all areas of negotiation. On my project, I mentioned that we're building, but we needed to get a skylift. Now this is a machine, giant forklifts, and we need this skylift. We had one before with a contractor. They left. We need to get another one. So we started getting bids for a rental. And we found one skylift rental, and they got the skylift. And the one we need can go 57 feet. We've got to lift a bunch of roof tiles up on top of the roof. And we plan on needing this skylift for about 3 months on this project. We need it on site because we're going to use it all the time. The price on this thing was like $6,000. So that's the regular rental price, $6,000. Now, I told our project foreman who's running this project, I said, go back and tell him that we'll rent it for a month, but we only want to pay $3,000. And that's the price for the smaller one that we looked at first. And we thought, you know what, it's too small. We need a bigger one. He said, okay, the bigger one's a lot more expensive. That's $6,000 a month. So I said to him, I said, go back and tell him that we want the bigger one, but we only want to pay the same price of $3,000. David's sort of like, well, there's no way he'll do that. Like, that's the price. I don't want to offend him. I don't want to look bad. And we're like, we got a relationship with him. It's okay. Just go back and say, hey, we want the bigger one, but we want to pay $3,000, not $6,000. So David says, we want the bigger one, but we want to pay $3,000. He says, I can't do that. That's way too low for that big one. And he comes back with like $5,000. It was a little bit lower. I said to David, I said, walk. I said, I think he wants to rent that thing. It's sitting there, losing money. Tell him $3,000 is all we can do, and no, we're gonna keep looking for another rental. So we didn't even come up. We did our low anchor at $3,000, but the body language here was hold out. We can always come back and say, all right, well, let's do $4,000 or something, right? We could always come up. But I said, stay firm. I said, hold out at $3,000. So he says, no, look, we gotta stay at $3,000. And guess what he does? He comes back and he says, okay, I'll do $3,000. Now, what happens if I wouldn't have low anchored? I would have came in at $4,000. And I said, wow, that's a little bit of a discount. That's better than $6,000. Okay, maybe I would have settled at $4,000, but I just was willing to go one more, is that as low as you can go? Part of this process is when they say no, then they'll say, there's no way I can pay that low. That's typically what happens. And then I say, okay, well, how close to that price can you get? And then they say, I could probably come down to $4,000. And then I just got it from $6,000 to $4,000. In this case, I said, you know what? Let's not even do the how low can you go. Let's just stay at $3,000 and see what happens. Why not? I'm trying to get the best deal I can get. He'll say no if it doesn't work for him, right? He's got choices. He can say no. So we held out at $3,000. He came back and he said yes. Well, then I was talking with my partner, Kate, and we got to thinking, well, shoot, we're going to need this thing for 3 months. We're going to be paying $9,000 now at $3,000. 3,000 times 3 months is $9,000. We're almost getting into a price where we're like, should we even think about buying one? So we thought, well, what would be a deal if we bought one? Man, if we could buy this thing for $15,000, that would be a really good deal because we could use it for 3 months and sell it for 20 or so, right? So we went back and we said, hey, David, call him back and say, we're considering renting it for 3 months, but we don't want to rent it. We want to buy it. And by the way, the tire on this thing is low. We need you to come out and fix the tire. We just rented it and you delivered it today and we got a tire problem. We said, tell him we'd like to buy it for $15,000. So he comes back and he says, there's no way I can let it go for $15,000. It's at least worth $25,000. Maybe I could do $21,000. That's my price, $21,000. And we said, look, nope, I can't pay $21,000. I gotta be at $15,000. And by the way, come fix the tire. So he comes back and he says, well, I can't do $15,000. But I'd love to sell that machine. I don't use it very often. It's kind of too big, whatever. $16,500. Okay, look what just happened. $25,000, low anchored at $15,000, came down to $21,000. We stayed at $15,000. He came down to $16,500. So then we went back and we said, $16,500 is too high, but I'll tell you what, we'll do $16,000. So we came up a little bit and we ended up buying it for $16,000. We're gonna use it for 3 months and then we're gonna easily turn around and sell it. And it also is like, if you look at the picture of it, needs a paint job. Like it's just kind of beat up looking, runs great so far, but we're probably gonna spend a little bit of money, paint it and sell it for $25,000. Even if I sell it for $21,000, $20,000, I'll have made $5,000 or $6,000 flipping the machine that I got to use for free for 3 months that would have cost me $9,000 to rent. Now, this experience of going through this with David, this is invaluable. Like this is negotiating. This is how you wanna learn how to run your life. You wanna learn how to negotiate like a pro. We just took this situation that was gonna be a $9,000 cost and we're turning it into a $5 or $6, maybe $10,000 gain. Or we could turn around and rent it. We could sell it on seller financing. We could do all kinds of things. We could flip it, but we just got a great deal on a machine. Now, this has taken me, lots of practice, years and years of doing this type of negotiation, but this is how I look at almost everything. I always try to negotiate this way. So let's go back to houses because this is a flipping channel on real estate, but I just wanted to illustrate using an example there. But you got to create a connection. You got to build a relationship of trust. Then you got to find out, well, what's the seller's asking price? Where are they at? What do they want for it? Then I'm going to do a low anchor. The low anchor needs to be a ballpark. I didn't talk about that much. Why does it need to be a ballpark? In this case, with the skylift, we were sort of going at more of a direct approach, and we came in and said 15. But the way to say that would be, look, I need to be probably, if I'm going to buy this thing, I need to be probably around, somewhere in the 15,000 range. So now it's not a concrete number, it's a ballpark. That works well with houses. I need to be in the high 200s. I need to be around 250. So you're now vague because that gives you room, gives you wiggle room, but you're still sort of making an offer. It needs to be low and it needs to solicit a no. That's the anchor idea there. And then they're going to say, there's no way I can pay that low. You're going to come back and say, well, that's my price in a perfect world, but how close to that can you get? And now we're going to see if they'll come down. That's where we find out if there's real motivation. In this case, if you think about the process, let me walk through it again, and I'll tell you my thought process here. 25 was the ask price. 15 was the anchor. He came down to 21, so this was his counter. And if you remember, at this point, we did not come up on the 15. We stayed again, just like with the rental at 3,000, we stayed again. Now, why? Because there's body language going on here. He already communicated to us yesterday, literally yesterday, that he would take 3,000 on a $6,000 rental. I knew this guy was motivated to get something done with this machine. He already communicated that with us on the previous negotiation for the rental. So why come up on 15? He already came down to 21. Why not try again? So we said, no, 15 is all we're gonna pay. Then he came down to 16.5. So he countered against himself down to 16.5. Now, I probably could have said, you know what, we're not budging, we're gonna stay here. And he might have come down again to the 15, but I just felt like, well, I don't know, I kind of beat him down quite a bit. Let me throw him a little bone and just lock it down. I'm already at a great deal. So that's why we decided to come up to 16. But I could have been a real, negotiating savage and stayed at 15 and probably got the deal. And I do that all the time too. So it's not like that was wrong there, but we ended up settling at 16. I felt like I just needed to give him a little bit. I didn't want him to second guess it or feel like we were too hard on him, but yet still got a phenomenal deal. So that's why we landed at the 16. But you can see here the process here. Now, I once had a deal with a student where we did this process here and we got really close. So let's say that I actually wanted to stay at 15 and not budge off of that, and he's at 16.5. Let's say that this scenario right here, he's at 16.5, I'm at 15, we're close, but we're not there. And let's say that 15 was the most I want to pay. Well, in this situation with my real estate student, that's what happened. We got really close. I forget what the numbers were, but they were really close. And this was an agent involved. And the agent said to me, Jerry, are you telling me that you're willing to lose this deal over a couple $1,000s? You're willing to walk from this deal and miss out on this deal when we're this close, we're at the finish line, we're right there, and you're not willing to come up a couple $1,000s. And I said the same thing back. I said, well, are you telling me that your seller's willing to walk from the deal and lose out on the deal over a couple $1,000s? It goes both ways. And they're like, well, that's as low as they can come down. And I said, well, that's as high as I want to go. And then we hung up the phone. And my student lost his mind. He's like, Jerry, that's still a deal. Like, why can't we make that work? We're so close. Like, we're losing out on the deal. And I said, hold on a second. I said, we got this deal. And he's like, what are you talking about? We didn't do it. We didn't agree. And I said, yeah, for now, but slow down. I'm reading the body language here. They're going to take our deal. I said to him, mark my words, they're going to take our deal. And he said, well, they said no. And so the next day he's like, what are we going to do? Are we going to call them back? Are we going to come up? Let's come up. Let's go up to their number. And I said, no, hold tight. This is high stakes negotiating, right? This is what we do. This is how this works. And so I said, they'll call. I'm telling you, they'll call and they'll come down. They came down so far, there's no way they're going to lose out on it. Just be patient. So we went the whole day. That evening, we got a call And this was at a live training where we were doing all of this. So he was there. And I said, look who's calling. The agent says, hey, they thought about it and they'll come down to your number and let's get the deal done. I said, okay, let's get the deal done. Why? Now, that could have not worked out and sometimes it doesn't, but for the most part, I can feel it. You got to be able to feel this, guys. Like, what is going on here? Can you feel their motivation? Can you sense it? Can you pick it up in their tone and their body language and how they're dropping the price? And are you willing to hold out to get the good deal? Are you willing to see it through and be patient for the good deal? And so that's the message I'm trying to convey here with you, is how to really negotiate like that. I hope you found this process really helpful. Guys, I've got all my scripts for how I do this with agents, with sellers, even cash buyers. I'll give those to you for free. You can download those and start using those and applying those. And I've got a live call I want you to watch next, where I did this call and I showed this exact process. And I did a live call in front of 3,500 people at a Squat Up Summit, Pace Morby and Jamil Damji's event. And I did it on the spot in front of everybody. And I got the seller to come all the way from 500,000 down to 350,000 following this exact process. And you can watch that right here and tell me what you think about that. And you can see this actually in process with a real estate deal. And I'll see you on the next video.